Hi, everybody. Today we're going to start looking at Romans, the letter by Paul to the Roman Church. And so we're going to have a series of videos. I'm going to try to make them a little shorter than I have in the past to make them a little more friendly for downloading. And so break this into pieces. And so we're going to look first at Paul's purpose for writing the book of Romans so we can understand how the whole thing works. We're going to try to also deal with all the big history questions and textual stuff in these early videos so that we're not going to interrupt the entire time as we go through the others. So, before we get going, make sure you have a Bible, pen, and notebook handy so you can go through this and get your full money's worth on this. And I want you to read Romans chapter 15. We're going to be starting from the back, which is when you're trying to get a big picture for one of Paul's letters, it's always usually appropriate to do. So Romans 15, and I want you to read verses 14 through 33. So Romans 15, 14 through 33, and then kind of pause so that we can resume after you've kind of looked it over. Okay, welcome back. And so we're going to look at in this passage is sort of three main purposes, and we're going to kind of look around the book to kind of see evidence of it for why Paul wrote the letter to Romans. So, and kind of getting them into like a little symmetry. So first, we're going to look at Paul's missionary purpose for writing this, which is the sort of most on the surface and obvious of them. Then we're going to look at Paul's mediating purpose for writing it. He's going to kind of get involved in an argument and stand between it. And then we're going to have Paul's meditating purpose, which he is kind of trying to clarify his own thoughts for some stuff. So this video, I'm going to try to restrain myself to just the missionary purpose. So if you've read Romans 15, 14 through 24, as I said, you may have noticed that he tells the Roman Church why he's writing them, and that shows up most obviously in verses 23 and 24. So in verses 23 and 24, he says, but now, since I'm no longer any room for work in these regions, he's talking about the Eastern Mediterranean, and since I've longed for many years to come to you, so he's wanted to go to Rome for a very long time, I hope to see you in passing as I go to Spain, and to be helped on my journey there by you once I've enjoyed your company for a while. So in these verses, we see Paul's kind of stated purpose for this letter, kind of the surface purpose, but also an important one to him, and that is to continue his mission work by going all the way to Spain. So first off, we want to kind of see like what's happening here. It seems like he's asking to be helped along by prayers and probably financial support too, but we're going to kind of take some guesswork and see some other stuff as well. So he wants this Roman church to maybe be his base of operations for reaching Spain. So first off, why Spain? Spain that we see popping up in verse 23 is to the Jewish mind and in the Old Testament is literally the end of the earth. It is probably, there's a little guesswork on this, every time the Bible talks about the place Tarshish, which is almost figurative to the other side of the world, kind of like we would use the word Timbuktu or Tibet, probably clumsily to do that. Tarshish was that to the Bible. It was the furthest place ships went. There's Phoenician colonies in Spain. They're Phoenicians to the Jews, and that was sort of the furthest reaches of that territory. So Spain to him was as far away as he knew about, as far as we can tell. It's unclear if Paul knew about Roman Britain, in which case that would be it. But the biblical prophets don't really mention Roman Britain. So for him, his imagination is, I get to Spain, I've kind of done my destiny of like starting a church kind of everywhere I know to start a church. Since he's not done converting everybody where he is, but his job, he said explicitly earlier, was not to water where other people have planted. He wanted to start new churches. And everywhere he's been going in the Eastern Mediterranean, there are churches that he established or someone else established. Rome being one of those churches that's already existing. He's not there to try to start it. It's a church that he had not much to do with founding. And he's not really looking to go there to build it, but to be greeted as Christian brothers there, and sent along on the new purpose to reach where what hasn't been reached before. And for him, that's Spain. And so you kind of can see that he wants to be sent along. He wants to be prepared as well. So we have a little hint of this up in verse 19. He said, he mentions all the places he's been. He says, by the power, signs, and wonder, by the power of the Spirit of God, so that from Jerusalem and all the way around to Illyricum, I fulfilled the ministry of gospel of Christ. Illyricum is a Roman colony. It's where modern day Albania is. Uh, when we look at the timeline of Paul's life, there's a place in the book of Acts where he went near it, and he's got years to kind of maybe in that area to kind of take a trip up there. But Luke in the book of Acts never mentions Paul going to Illyricum. But he brings it up here, and it's kind of an interesting thing to look at because Illyricum would have been the only place Paul would have been to up to this point that spoke predominantly Latin, which is what the Roman colonies in Spain also spoke. And if you wanted to kind of learn Latin and master it, you'd probably go to the source, to Rome. So you kind of was like doing a very normal missionary thing to do. He's going to Rome maybe to learn Latin, to learn Roman culture, and to be sent along and get support, and something that's much easier based on operations going westward. So that so Spain kind of serves as the end of the earth, but we also kind of want to see where Rome kind of represents the end of the earth to them as well, or is a place to reach the ends of the earth. In the book of Acts, that's kind of the way Luke sets it up. The book of Acts is sort of framed by the Great Commission, where it says first you go to Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, then the ends of the earth. And it kind of follows the gospel going in that progression, ending with Paul showing up in shackles in Rome after the book of Romans is written. So maybe that's also part of it. This is sort of a fulfilling kind of moment. And we'll see that in the sort of conclusion of Romans' argument in Romans 11, that he has maybe hopes that this is what God is doing, that God is bringing the nations to him. He's bringing a fulfillment to him. And Paul is getting to be a part of that. And he is sort of very happy about that mission. So that's going to conclude our first kind of purpose for Paul, his missionary trip to Romans. And so I'll take a pause right here.